Have you ever come across someone that has made a completely wrong assumption? Why does it happen? And how do you challenge an assumption without sort of getting someone upset or without saying to someone that you are wrong? So today we're going to be continuing on with our NLP meta model. It's the subject I've been talking about in the last couple of videos. But first of all, I want to welcome you to another episode of Unconscious Communication Secrets with myself, Muneer. And today, as I said, we're going to be talking about the NLP meta model. But I want to give you a very quick analogy just to start with, or a little understanding. Have you ever been to, like, you see a football game, for example, two people are watching the same football game and one event happens, right? Like someone kicks the ball or like someone gets hurt. And there are two different people that are watching the exact same game, but depending on who they support, for example, they will swear. In fact, you'll have a whole stadium. One side will swear that one thing happened and one other side will swear another thing has happened. And yet they have seen the same event. What has happened? What happens to us when we filter things differently? And so we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about something called distortion. It's a type of way that we think that enables us to survive in actual fact, right? So, and it's so important to understand this because sometimes you want to overcome assumptions so that you can create clarity, right? You want to overcome assumptions so that you can gain more information and you can get someone to think more clearly, which will hopefully allow them to solve a problem or to overcome a challenge or whatever it is. So now, why do we make assumptions? We actually, as human beings, we need to make assumptions in order to make sense, because we have 2 million bits of information that come into our mind every single second, whether it's from all the things that we see, hear, and feel every single moment. Now, our brain can't process every single one of those. For example, maybe you're not thinking about your heart beating right now. Until I mentioned it, or you might not be thinking about how your feet feel in your shoes. But there are different little bits of information that come in every single second. And in order for us to make sense, the brain creates these shortcuts. It assigns meaning to things very quickly. And because we assign meanings to things very quickly, because we quickly put two and two together, our brain creates patterns. It is useful. Don't get me wrong, it's useful. That's why our brain does it. However, at times, we make shortcuts which also cause a few problems in the way that we think. Now, there were two therapists back in the day, Fritz Perls and Virginia Satir, that were studied. These guys used to get a lot of success with their clients. And how they would get success is they would challenge every one of these assumptions with a few questions. And two people, Dr. Richard Bandler and John Grinder, they went and studied them to see what sort of questions they were asking to get people out of this kind of thinking. So I'm going to be sharing with you basically what their findings were. So it's something called the meta model, and we're looking at a category of it called distortions. Basically, how are we distorting our thinking? So the first part of that is when people do a mind read, what's called a mind read. And like, let's just look at a few sentences. So you say, he wants to fire me. If someone says he wants to fire me, like, you're making an assumption over there. When the category called mind read is when you are assuming what someone is thinking or feeling, you're assuming what someone's thinking or feeling. Hey, Bint Adam, it's great. I love. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate you, and I know it is a great topic. It's very useful. So, all right. So, if someone says, "I know that you're going to love this," we're doing a mind read. We're doing a mind read. If you are assuming what someone is thinking or feeling, or if someone is assuming what someone is thinking or feeling without having any evidence, it's a mind read. All right. So you see it in people's or you hear it in people's conversation, everyday conversation. He wants to fire me. I know that you're gonna love this. She hates my guts. You have no idea what the consequences are. So when you're assuming what someone is thinking or feeling, it's called a mind read. And sometimes it can be good, but sometimes it can cause problems. So when you're trying to get clarity when you're speaking to someone, you want to challenge this. And how do we challenge this? By asking them, how do you know? How do you know? Like literally, or and maybe they're right, but you want to uncover, you need to get more clarity on the topic. So you ask them, how do you know? So he wants to fire me. How do you know that? Or I know that you're going to love this. Or I know that you're going to hate this. How do you know? And or she hates my guts. How do you know? When you ask that question, you uncover bits of information, but also it might create a bit, if it's a problem that they have. Oh, this person hates my guts. Let's say, you just say, how do you know? It creates enough. It may create enough of it will either give you more information to work with, or create a bit of a doubt in their mind, going, well, I don't actually know, so maybe I could be wrong. So when you ask the right question, it can give you loads more information. It can uncover problems. So this is the first category, what we call mind reads. The second category is what we call a cause and effect. Our mind likes to create patterns. It likes to put this and this together, right? And it needs to do that in order to survive. Let's talk about, like, if you, every time you go to a door, you think, okay, if I do this, then the door will open, right? So your mind has, even though it's the first time you're going to a door, like this, a particular door, your mind has created patterns in the past. Again, it's a very useful way for our mind to think, but at the same time, it can cause problems in the wrong scenario. So our mind gets into a pattern of, if this happens, then this. So for example, it puts patterns together which sometimes don't belong. You'll hear people say things like, if you don't go, they'll be insulted. Or swimming after eating will make you drown. Or if you eat garlic, then you won't get coronavirus, or something like that, whatever it is. What you said made me upset. So if you hear little phrases like, it makes me, or if this, then this, or something like that. And how we challenge it is, you just want to ask the question, like, how does this cause this? How does this make this happen? So if you don't go, they will be insulted. How does me not going cause them to be insulted? How does me eating garlic cause me to become immune from coronavirus, or whatever it is? How does swimming after eating make you drown? Again, sometimes there may be, you'll either uncover more information, which is what you need in order to make a good decision, or you'll break the thinking. So you'll break a wrong assumption if it's a wrong assumption. So you want to understand the assumption by asking the right question. Then there's another category, something that we call complex equivalence. What's a complex equivalence? It's when this equals that. Again, our mind likes to make quick shortcuts and says this equals this. The sun out equals hot, for example. Or you see a stove and it's red equals hot. Like, our mind quickly makes assumptions. Sometimes it could be wrong. However, our mind is designed to create quick assumptions. Now, because sometimes it can be wrong, we want to be able to challenge that. So if a person says to us, this person didn't smile, which means she hates me. Have you ever heard someone, like have you ever heard a friend or a cousin or a family member, or have you ever done it yourself? You've just sort of said, This person didn't smile, they hate me. Like, and you're kind of like, how does this equal this, right? Like, but we do it. People do it. Bitcoin is going up, which means our currency will fail. Or you didn't make dinner, you don't love me. And this is what happens in relationships all the time. And this equals that. Our mind has created meaning. Our mind loves to search for meaning, and so we create meaning. And sometimes that meaning is wrong, and you want to challenge it. So you want to understand that assumption. So you just sort of ask, how does this mean this? How does her not smiling mean that she hates you? How does her not smiling mean that she hates you? I'm just curious. I'd like to know. And when you ask the question, either they'll have an answer or it will break the pattern. And this is what why this form of questioning is so powerful. How does the fact that Bitcoin going up mean that currency will fail? How does this mean that? How does me not making dinner mean that I don't love you? You ask the questions, or how does them not making dinner mean that they don't love you? Again, these are amazing ways to either break the pattern or get more information so that you can work with something. Then there's something called a lost performative. I know that the names sound a little complex, however, they're very simple and we use them in everyday language. A lost performative is when a value judgment is being made, but you don't know who's made the judgment. So, for example, you should not look into someone's eyes. When you say that, okay, according to who, like who's made this rule? Eating chicken legs is not good for your heart. According to who is eating chicken legs not good for your heart? Like, who says that? Where's the study? What are you referring to? And so when we say lost performative, it's when someone's giving you this sort of value judgment, but they're not saying who has said it, who has taught it, right? It's sensible for children to dress smartly. According to who, right? And this is a great one that people fall into this trap all the time. I'm a bad artist, right? You're a bad art. Like when someone says I'm really bad at drawing, and you ask them according to who, and you say according to who, and they'll be like, oh, my second grade teacher told me when I was young, or I am. And you just be like, well, are you the world's expert on art? Was your teacher a famous artist? So even when you get that a bit of information and then you relay it, then people just, oh, okay, yeah, and it breaks problems so easily. I like this. Bin Adam is saying, but my grandma said that the chicken leg. Believe me. Thanks, Hina. Yes, completely. So when you hear someone say a value statement, like a value judgment, you should not look into someone's eyes. You want to find out, you want to recover who has made this value judgment, according to who. So you should not look into someone's eyes, according to who. When Hina gave the example of the chicken legs are not good for your heart, according to my grandmother, right? And then you can find out more information after that. Is she a dietitian? Does she know? And sometimes it could be true, but you want to find out more information so that you're not making assumptions. Because when you make an assumption, do I do it? It's been said so many times, but I have to do it. You make an ass of you and me. When you assume, you make an ass of you and me. Anyhow, I did it. I couldn't help it. I did it. I'm sorry. It was there. I had to go for it. It was a low-hanging fruit. All right. So that was a lost performative. Okay, when you want to find out according to who. The next part of distortions in the meta model is something called presuppositions. Now, when you say a presupposition, you're making a statement that in order to make sense of the statement, you're assuming things, or you're presupposing something to be true. I'll give you an example. It'll make more sense. Did you eat chicken or fish for dinner? When someone says, did you eat chicken or fish for dinner, they're presupposing a number of things. That you ate dinner, that you had chicken, or you had fish, you didn't have something else, right? They are presupposing that one of those, that all of these things are true. And sometimes, like, you're making an assumption that could be totally wrong. If someone comes and says, have you stopped speeding when you drive? You're presupposing that I drive, but I also that I'm speeding when I drive, okay? Or if a judge says to someone, have you stopped beating your wife? They're presupposing, number one, that they're married, okay? But then there's a presupposition that he is beating the wife, right? Like maybe the wife has walked in and she is, let's say she's hurt, and the judge says, have you stopped beating your wife, for example? He's making presupposing something to be true. And this is very dangerous in some situations, but it's also very powerful in some situations when you want to communicate effectively. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But if you want to discover the source of the assumption, so especially if it's wrong, like, what makes you think? So, like, why do you think that I ate dinner? Or what makes you think that I had dinner yesterday? Or what makes you think that I ate chicken or fish? What makes you think I didn't have something else yesterday? And this is not you want to have some rapport when you ask these questions, because you don't want to seem like a bit of an asshole when you're like, what makes you think I had dinner yesterday? And you want to be like, so no, what makes you think I had dinner yesterday? Just a little bit of tonality, but you want to find out, you want to discover what's the source of that assumption. Have you stopped speeding when you drive? Like, what makes you think that I drive, or what makes you think that I speed every time that I drive? Or a judge have you stopped beating your wife? What makes you think that I was beating my wife? And you want to get the source of the assumption, okay? Because then you can work with it, or you can either work with it or deplete it. And assumptions or presuppositions can be used very powerfully in a lot of different aspects, in a lot of persuasive aspects as well. If you look at a lot of political campaigns, they hire people that know NLP and NLP language, because they want them to implement those sort of techniques in political campaigns. I'm going to show you one of the most famous campaign slogans that uses something called presuppositions. I'm not going to say whether you agree or you don't agree. I'm not here to talk about it. I'm just talking about the presuppositions in this political statement. Make America great again. It has a lot of presuppositions built into it. When you're saying make America great again, you're presupposing that America was great once upon a time, that it isn't great now, and that we can make it, we'll be able to make it so in the future. But you see, that you can communicate a lot with presuppositions, but it can also cause problems in terms of when we do it inaccurately in our own lives. So that's how presuppositions work. So that's today's session. We're talking about meta model distortions. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you want to know more about NLP, do check out uaenlp.com. If you have not, please do subscribe to my channel, where we talk about influence, persuasion, and a whole lot more. Other than that, I want to thank you guys very much for tuning in. Hopefully you found this useful. It's a more complex topic, but when you get your head around it, it can be so powerful in terms of understanding not only how you think, but how others think, and then how to challenge ourselves when we get stuck in the way that we think. So that is NLP, the meta model and distortions. I want to thank you for tuning in. I appreciate every one of you. Peace out, one love, and I will see you on another video very soon. Peace out, one love, and I'll see you guys soon. Thanks for now. Bye.